You're watching India Tonight. Now let's focus on the fact that research firm Crisil Intelligence released its monthly indicator of the cost of preparing a typical home-cooked Indian vegetarian and in fact a non-vegetarian thali for September. Now the report finds that the cost of preparing a vegetarian thali declined by 10% on a year-on-year basis, while the cost for a simple non-vegetarian thali decreased by 6% annually. You're looking at those numbers on your screens at the moment. Now, the report also highlights the prices of some key food ingredients. In the month of September now, while vegetables prices came down, vegetable oil shot up 21% on a year-on-year basis, beg your pardon. In fact, to discuss this report in detail, we have with us Pushan Sharma, Director, Crisil Intelligence, joining us on the show. Mr. Sharma, all right, we will go across to Mr. Sharma when we do have him on the show in a bit. But having said that, these are essential numbers that you're also looking at on your screen. So clearly, when you're talking about vegetable like the potato, it's down 31%, Sumita. In fact, when you're also talking about onions, it's down 46%, and tomato is down 8%. So these are, of course, what we're looking at year on year versus month on month, Sumita.
Absolutely, Nivedna. So let's once again reiterate for our viewers the top findings of this report. Well, this report finds that the cost of preparing a vegetarian thali, they have declined by 10% on a year-on-year basis, while the cost of a simple non-vegetarian thali, they have increased, that has increased by 6% annually. In fact, the report is also highlighting the prices of some key food ingredients. For instance, if you look at the month of September now, while vegetable prices have come down, vegetable oil has shot up. The price of vegetable oil has shot up by 21% on a year-on-year basis. And of course, we will be discussing this report in detail with a very special guest who's joining us in a short while from now. In fact, I'm given to understand that Mr. Pushan Sharma, the director at Crisil Intelligence, is now joining us live on this broadcast. Thank you very much, Mr. Sharma, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET Now. First, I want to understand from you the kind of decrease that we have seen for both a vegetarian thali and non-vegetarian thali. Is that giving you a sense of a broader decrease, or is this a temporary relief?
No, we're seeing that sequentially the prices have been coming down, and that's on account of a high base that we had seen last year. And specifically, if one looks at the top category, that is tomato, onion, and potato, we saw that last year there was a lot of pressure on these commodities. Onion, for example, the Rabi season had seen a sharp decline in production last year, and that's why the prices had skyrocketed. In fact, even in case of potato, the crop is concentrated only in a few states like West Bengal, UP, Bihar. These states account for about 70% of India's potato production. There we had seen blight infestation last year. And in case of tomato, there was disruption on account of rainfall. So on account of that high base and the reduced production last year, we're seeing a sequential decline in prices. So to answer your question, this is not a temporary blip that we're seeing in prices. These trends are expected to sustain over the next few months as well.
In fact, Mr. Sharma, as you speak about what the items are here that have eased, but we're looking at oil prices that have, edible oil prices that have spiked 21% on year. Is that purely festive demand, or is there an underlying global pressure that could perhaps sustain this rise?
So if you look at the vegetable prices, they have been rising from September of last year. And that's because the duty was increased in September 24. And that had led to the prices increasing. So the prices before that were around 125 rupees per liter, and that inched up to about 150. In fact, in June 25, there was a slight reduction that was made in the duty, but that has not been passed on to the end consumers. But overall, if you look at the food plate and the contribution of vegetable oil, that's to the tune of around 4 to 5%. So that does not meaningfully increase the prices overall for the consumers.
Right, Mr. Sharma. So how much of a bearing will these numbers have on RBI's outlook on inflation and rates going forward?
So if you look at food inflation, I mean, overall inflation, food has a contribution of close to about 50%. And if we look at these numbers closely and look at the numbers from the month of October to December of last year, we see that there is, again, a high base that we observe between October to December. The food part of inflation was almost in early double digits, around 11% in October and close to about 9% in November and December. So we are up against a high base. So coming few months, we will see the print being lower. And in fact, if one were to just zoom out and look at the 12 months, how the seasonality pans out for commodity prices and the food plate, one can divide the year into two parts. Between June to November, that's with the onset of the monsoon season. That's when the prices start picking up. June and July is a period where we typically see a spike in tomato prices. September is a period where we see a spike in onion prices. So that's a lean window where the rabi stock gets depleted and the fresh Kharif arrival has not really reached the market. So that's where we see a pickup in the onion prices. And that's followed by the festival season in October and November. So between June to November, the prices always tend to increase. And from December onwards, till about May, which is the summer, almost the end of the summer month, that's when the prices are subdued. And this coincides with December is a time when there is a lot of Kharif arrival in the market. April and May, March, April, May, we have the Rabi arrivals coming into the market. So that's the extra supply that comes into the market that eases the prices. So on the food inflation side, for the next couple of months, we are expecting there will still continue to be respite because of the high base. From January onwards, in any case, we are now not going to get the benefit of a very low base. And that's where we could see some push up that might occur on the price front.
Mr. Sharma, you point that out, in terms of the increase in LPG prices in the report, how does energy inflation dilute the benefit of, falling food prices for households cooking at home?
Right. So, there was benefit firstly when the prices had reduced. But now with the prices having increased by about 50%, 50 rupees, from 800 it has gone to about 850. That is definitely having a bearing on the overall cost. And the decline would have been steeper had it not been for the LPG price rise, because the contribution of fuel to a vegetarian thali is to the tune of around 10%. So that definitely has a meaningful bearing on the overall costs.
Right, Mr. Sharma, since you're talking about these softer prices, this easing of prices that we've seen on a month-on-month basis, but you essentially say that in January is when you're going to see a mild push-up in prices due to the depletion of the base effect. So what could be the key risks that could see this reversal of this trend of easing of prices?
The key risk that we are seeing right now is how the monsoon is panning out. Although technically we are sort of done with the southwest monsoon because September is when it gets over. But we're still seeing rainfall in the northern part of the country, parts of Western India. And this is the period when the harvest is taking place for the Kharif crop. Some of the crops which are perishable in nature, onion, tomato, all of that can cause volatility in prices, that can lead to inch up in prices. Even the stored onion that was stored from the Rabi season, that is the winter cropping season, that too could get damaged. And the moisture content for some of the commodities like rice, some of the stored wheat, that could also cause some concern. So I think monsoon, how it ends, because it's not ended so far, that remains a major criteria, a major aspect for us to monitor. The good news is that we have had an excess rainfall, and the good news is for the Rabi season, because the reservoir levels are pretty much in place. So that's a good sign for the Rabi season, because only about 60% of India's area is irrigated. So that's going to provide some respite for the Rabi season. In fact, if you look at the last 10 years, we're seeing more instances of excess rainfall than normal or lower rainfall. So structurally, that is something which is going to benefit the Rabi season in India.
All right, Mr. Sharma. So in a sense, those are the key factors that you'd be watching out for. But on that note, both Sumita and I want to thank you very much for joining us this evening here on ET Now. But for the moment, we leave the conversation at that.